but
do a quick intro, maybe.
I've essentially stolen this straight from one of our providers called Commbox. And so what they do is they do two forms of product. They do interactive displays. So essentially the big TV actually has touch on it. And the other one is just static displays. Does somebody have a timer going? Because I have a chronic case of waffle mouth.
I'll give you a 5-minute mark.
So these are just some of the organizations that sort of specifically use Commbox. So they're on like the Defense Accredited Hardware list. They're over in Afghanistan and secret bunkers and whatnot. They just won a $55 million contract with the state government. And the idea, they essentially come in sort of 43 inches all the way up to 98. Built-in wireless screen for Windows, iOS, and iPhone. So no need for cables anymore to have the connectivity. And they have the 5-year on-site warranty. So the difference between a Commbox, the interactive displays, and sort of going down to JB Hi-Fi. JB Hi-Fi has no warranty for commercial businesses. So that's, whereas these things come with a 5-year warranty. Let's keep going. So those are the sizes. And once again, it's a case of, you have so many people coming into an office just like this, where they're trying to connect and you're trying to get sort of wires, cables, and things like that going. You can wirelessly stream mobile devices onto the screen, iPhones, tablets, up to 4 devices at once. You can have security pins so that only the people in the room can connect to the screen, so you don't have interesting people logging in from outside. Mirrorcast, Chromecast. So once again, the basic premise is everybody at the moment has a TV like this in their office, in a boardroom, and everybody plugs in with the HDMI cable or does some sort of Chromecast. And it's essentially just a case of it's got a lot of built-in smarts, but at the end of the day, it is just a screen. So it's just how to get whatever computer somebody brings into the office up onto the screen. And then instead of me walking from here across and back, I can run everything from the screen because it's all touch. And the benefit between a TV and a projector is that just like in here, we can have all the lights on and everybody can see a TV perfectly fine. If you're down at Barangaroo and you've got a big boardroom with lots of open windows, you want a TV. Capacitive touch and things like that, they come with the audio. And those are sort of all the stands that you can have for them as well. So we recommend, I personally think you should have these things on stands because you can move them from office to office. So you can have very, very large ones on tilt stands so that they can go on an easel if you're so light. But it's just to sort of give you an idea that...
So you just plug in the power.
Plug in the power and then...
Whichever room, and it's just next to the Wi-Fi in the office.
Yep. And I've got some examples. And I mean, this is an example of sort of one of the cameras. So the idea is a camera like this, you can actually put it at the far end of the room. And then as you're standing next to the screen, you're doing the Teams meeting to the camera. And the camera actually comes with a little remote control, so it'll actually track you around the room. Something like this would actually sit on top of the TV, and depending on who's in the room, it actually tracks faces. So if somebody's sitting on the left-hand side of the table, the camera will actually track to the left-hand side of the table and zoom in on them and give you a bit of face.
So you don't need someone like me moving the camera around.
Moving the camera. And it comes with a nice giant subwoofer so that you can sort of hear everybody far and wide. And this is just to give you a bit of an idea. So it's like small screens are absolutely great for tiny little breakout rooms. And you only sort of need a 55-inch display. I mean, we did one the other day and they're still huge compared to sort of the size. You know, you've got your Jabra Panacast and things like that where you can have your little microphone on the table.
I was going to ask about that because sound is one of the biggest issues.
That Focus AI can hear you from the far side of this room. It's so good.
Oh, right.
And then the biggest screens are things like 90-inch, 86 and 75. So our office has 75 inches in all of our different locations because any bigger and you're sort of doing a marathon between one side of the screen and the other. And that's sort of just an idea. So it's like you sometimes see people with 2 different screens, one screen for people and one like the Teams meetings and things like that. And that's just a quick run through of sort of the technology side of what's available. I've got...
Do these play, while you're getting the next one up, do these still, are they still a TV as well? Like, can you have a receiver or?
You can, but not really. So
Just out of curiosity, what size is that TV?
something like that. That's probably 75-inch there.
No, the one on the wall.
Probably 75-inch.
Oh, okay.
If you bring it down.
That's quite a big one.
Yeah. And so this is just an example of like a Teams meeting that you can do where you can screen share what you've got. You can then sort of write on your side, and whatever content you're writing on the screen, because you're screen sharing through Teams, it's obviously being shared with everybody else. So 90% of the training that we do is actually all based on Windows. So Windows has every different feature is now touch in Windows, but nobody uses it. So it's a case of, because it's kind of down here, and if I was trying to show it to somebody, it's kind of difficult to use the touch features. But if you've got a giant screen like this, it immediately becomes quite a simple thing.
And so, John, if you're logging into FaceTime, you're doing that through your laptop, but it's Bluetooth into the Commbox. Is that right? So you're going to have something on your.
So
for your Zoom link, for example, if you're Zooming, then you have a Zoom link on your laptop, but
yes.
Zooming to the Commbox.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a couple of different ways to do it. So this one here is an example of the one that we've got over at Panthers, where they wheel it out onto the oval, and they can actually do. They've got drones that watch them do the training, and there's little buttons down the bottom of the screen so that they have their video replays. They can then sort of go cool, circle, mark everything up as they want.
Yeah, cool.
Turn it off, hit play, sort of, and I'm trying to find a different word for collaborate because it's kind of a little bit worn out in my mouth now. So if anybody can help me with that, I'll pay you for it. But it is one of those features where it sort of just draws people in. And we've got one of them, I was quite excited about this one. What's it? We've actually got one in the boardroom for the Estina. The Estina group is using one of the screens down in their boardroom. So if anybody does want to see it, we can do demos over there. And even for simple things like, I don't know if you recognize that command. That's a 65-inch screen. So it looks big because Jim might not necessarily be as tall as all the football players, but the football players have an 86-inch screen. It just looks small because they're all sort of 6.5 feet. But you know, Jim uses his one because he takes the satellite imagery for the houses and then he marks it all up on that. And it was a case of over time, he's got like the camera and the sound bar and different bits and pieces. But they can come with a computer that slides into the back of them so that it has a computer natively on it that you can run off. And it's just a case of, once again, it gives you the option of just doing it as a regular Teams meeting. So he sits in his chair and he does his Teams meeting and his training sessions and everything like that on the TV. But if you're doing presentations to people, you can log in via Teams, have a camera at the far end of the room and do the presentation on the screen. So it's just a case of, if I'm not constantly going back here, I could be just sort of touching everything on the screen and going through it. And like I said, the ability to sort of send a link to the website and just go, yeah, check these out, it really engages people. So these are the sorts of products where it's like very, very exciting for us because it is sort of engaging people with starting conversations and things like that.
Can I ask a question about Jim, who runs Nepean Solar, for those that aren't aware? So most of the people here are more like Jim's business rather than Panthers. Yeah, interestingly enough. So what does Jim? So Jim uses this obviously to do a presentation. Is this for his team, like to do team meetings, or when he's presenting to clients?
He actually uses it all internally. He doesn't necessarily use it to present it to clients. Yeah. In the background, you can see he's got 1, 2, 3 different whiteboards. Whereas he can use OneNote and just use OneNote instead of 3 different whiteboards. He can use Excel and put it up and change it and things like that. So,
and then draw on it as well, as you said. Yeah.
It just means that, once again, normally when we're sitting in the room, we sort of sit down, we've got 2 monitors there, and then you sort of tilt one of the monitors towards people, and you sort of do it that way. And it sort of requires people to get quite close. And so in sort of, I guess, an office setting, it just gives you the ability, let's go sit down, I'll bring my laptop, and we're going to do it this way, exactly with the cable. But if you're doing it to clients and things like that, it gives you the ability to put the laptop away and you're going from sort of screen to person as opposed to screen to computer to person. So it just sort of, it's just one of those things where they're really quite engaging products. And I mean, once again, the guys at the Steena Group, they went, why am I going to get this instead of a TV, John? And I said, sex appeal. It's just like, it's sort of a technology that's quite, it's very, very still new. So you've got Microsoft, they've got their hub out at the moment, and it's something like $10,000 for a standard screen. These things are sort of half the price, and they're fairly customizable. But it's just a matter of, you know, there's a million different additional features and things like that that you can add into them. So it's like down at the SES guys, they've actually got it where you can flick from one screen to another and different control features. It does have sort of built-in apps and stuff like that for schools and education, but it just gives you a different way to sort of try and connect with people. Perfect. 1 minute over.
Questions? Any other questions for John?
So with the touch screen, it's like a touch screen on the laptop. It's going to do exactly the same thing on the Commbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can take 20 points of touch at any one point in time. So you can grab your hand and just sort of, it's got a built-in sort of whiteboard and things like that. It's got a lot more features, but I just sort of wanted to go over the idea of, you know, doing presentations down sort of a camera at one end versus just having sort of your regular laptop and things like that.
So John, when I double my income over the next year or so, I invest in one of these, I can run effectively a webinar of this. If I wanted a camera, I can stand up, do a presentation at the same and instead of sharing a screen off your laptop, like
I still have that YouTube link of you doing the whiteboard.
Yeah, all of those. Yeah, whereas
I just have to increase my profits by 1%.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, imagine doing that where it's like you've got your camera over there, but you're using this screen. Yeah, it's a case of you don't get that weird, you know how a lot of times, because it's a 4K TV, you don't get that CRT refresh or anything like that. It's just sort of screen as is and things like that. So
yeah, there you go. Excellent. Thank you, John.